couple of years ago, I recorded a video that proved to be one of our most popular, and it was how you can use newer Gen AI models to help with the recruiting process. In the last 2 years, a lot has changed, and now recruiters are able to use so many more products to get their work done, most of which is available off the shelf for minimal or no cost at all, and are probably already included in your workforce's stack. So we're going to walk through today a 3-tier approach of how you can think about using AI in the recruiting process day to day in less than 10 minutes. Tier 1 is the single prompt. That's building on what we learned last time and just giving you a demo of what's available now. Tier 2 is the research workflow, so how you can actually think about building a whole system that you can set up once and keep repeating whenever you need to run a new research process. And step 3 is the fully automated workflow, which is where you can actually set something up to run automatically and actually take yourself out of some of the manual admin so you can focus more time on actually speaking to individual candidates. If you want to download the resources, the link's in the description. It'll take you to the Meander Talent Academy website. Just go to the resource library, and I'm going to be putting all of the resources in these videos up here, all free to download. You just click through the link, click download, and that will drop straight into your folder, and then you can utilize that for whatever you want. But the first one we're going to go through is the single prompt template, and you can see I've got a few ideas in here for what you may use. You're probably already familiar with this. If you're watching my videos, you've probably had a go at many of these different approaches. What I've done is already fill in the gaps here to say we're sourcing for a senior product manager role, and this is for a role at Wayfair, so I pulled in what we would typically have used to find someone there. So I'm actually going to run that through, just using the basic Sonnet model here. And so very quickly, it's going to give me these Boolean strings, drop these into Google, drop these into LinkedIn. You should be able to find a number of candidates that meet your requirements here. It's not rocket science. If you're not, please experiment around with it. Look at these other prompts, and I'll be really excited to hear how you get on and whether this is actually helpful for you in kicking off a new search. But what I really want to dig into is the research workflow templates, because I think this is one of the big things that has changed in the last couple of years. It's actually being able to combine multiple different data sources into context to actually help you do your job more effectively. So again, we're going to go into Claude, but here what I've done is set up a project. And so the project, if you imagine you're carrying many recs over the course of a year, you're probably going to have a lot of these projects set up. So this is same example, senior product manager at Wayfair. But what I've done here is actually added some more context. And the idea of putting everything into a project is whenever you ask a question within this project, it's going to give you the information based on the files that you shared, and it's going to keep that context within the project. So it's not going to reference things that are no longer relevant. And it's just a really good way for you to manage your overall workflow. So in here, you can see there's 4 files I added, and that's based on the step 2 here. We've put the job description in there, just copy and pasted from the job board. We've put in the comp benchmarking, again, just copied from the top here. I know that a lot of the kind of comp benchmarking was done, and that's normally included in the post now, which is really helpful. I pulled in a couple of recent updates. So one was the Q4 financial results, just the narrative for that, not the full 10K investor relations report for now, just to keep things simple. And then also the latest press release for an announcement. And I haven't actually run this yet, but what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this prompt and then figure out what context we can get from here. Again, we're just using the Sonnet 4.6 model, so nothing too intense. This is their kind of like base model. So first what it's doing is it's running through the skills, and then we'll see what that comes back with. I think while we're waiting for that to run, we can actually go through and look through another example, which is the market intelligence report with NotebookLM. And I'm really excited for NotebookLM. I was actually recommended to check this out by one of the recruiting managers I know, and I've been so excited to use this. I'll show you the feature that I like most about it. But again, here we have the same kind of context, but instead of pasting the job description directly, we're running a slightly different approach here where we're doing market intelligence. So this is helpful if you have to get on a sell call with a candidate, or you're sourcing candidates from multiple different areas. Maybe you're doing this market intelligence for one of your big competitors, and you actually want to be able to explain why your company is more effective and is a great place for them to move to. And you can just add all the sources in here, and NotebookLM is going to use those sources and give you the information that you need. Exactly. So again, there's 4 sources I pulled in. You can put in a ton of different sources here. And what's great about NotebookLM is you can actually add websites, you can add YouTube videos, you can add PDFs. I like to combine a lot of different things together. This is the Wayfair careers page. It has the reviews from Indeed.com. I tried to use Glassdoor, but they kept wanting me to log in, and I got bored with that. And then again, the two most recent announcements, the fourth quarter results and the new opening dates for its new physical retail stores. So it gives you a bunch of sample questions that you could ask. But what I'm going to do here is actually ask the questions that were recommended in the prompt. So this is now looking through the sources that we've given it, and it's going to look through just the information that it has, but it uses the generative AI interface, so it's much easier to ask these questions. While it's doing that, let's go back to see if our Claude, so our Claude is still generating. It actually looks like it's creating kind of a whole mini application, but we can see that NotebookLM has now given us top 3 strategic priorities for Wayfair in the next 12 months. These are good talking points if you're talking to a candidate. Some of the technical challenges, patterns in employment sentiment, so what people like about working at Wayfair, what people have not found helpful. So here's your pitch. It's going to give you a helpful way to frame the conversation and hopefully be able to answer any questions ahead of time. Another good kind of prompt point there is, what kind of questions are candidates like to ask? You could upload the candidate's LinkedIn profile and say, given this candidate's background, where are they most interested in this particular role and how may we want to sell it to them? So there's a bunch of different things you can do, but the things that I'm most excited about with NotebookLM are the studio features on the right-hand side. So I loaded this up earlier just so it would generate, but one of the things that I really like is the slide deck feature. So you can actually, I'll expand this view. We just generated this slide deck based on the data that we put in. And what it's doing is actually giving us, I asked it the same questions that we just put in the chat window, but it's giving us a more visual way to study. So if we're actually applying for a job, this is going to be a good way to learn a little bit more about the company and the business, a way to kind of brief other people. You could imagine creating this kind of slide deck, maybe with some data that you have that is not publicly available, but you're allowed to share out, and you can actually explain to them why this role in particular is suitable for them with a slide deck, which is really nice if you're targeting consulting candidates, and kind of like go through the whole thing and just kind of gives you the kind of sales pitch. The other factor I really like about NotebookLM is this audio overview concept. I'm not going to demo it on this video, but essentially what you can do is create a mini podcast, and you can customize the podcast just by typing some things in here and say, give me the kind of strategic direction of the company over the next 12 months. Give me a good argument for why I shouldn't work at this company, or why would a candidate who is currently a top performer in their business want to take a role with this company. And so all these kind of approaches that you can take, and these are really helpful on commutes, or I like to listen to them when I'm walking my dog. Okay, so NotebookLM, I can't say enough good things about that. We'll go back and see what we've created over in Claude. So as expected, it's over-delivered, and so now we have a full document here, which is giving us our intake agenda, some clarifying questions. This is really helpful if you're going to talk to a hiring manager, draft screening framework, potential risks. Well, so this has actually really gone into depth with a lot of context. And so we're not going to read this in detail, but you can see here very quickly, it's pulled in all of the context that we've created in the project, and it's given us this hiring manager intake prep. So you can imagine actually printing this out, sending this to the hiring manager ahead of time, and then using this agenda to actually talk through the role. And it gives you a lot of structure around the intake prep. One of the things that I would probably like to do if I was building this out in production would be to include the structured hiring program that the company actually uses, so that you can actually base all of the intake prep around the flow that you actually expect this hiring process to take, so it's more customized to the individual. And one of the things that you can then do is, after your intake meeting, take all the notes from the intake meeting, and this could be recorded if you're using a video chat, and actually drop them back into this project. And so over time, you're gradually updating the context. And so whenever you go back into this project, maybe you're adding in candidate profiles and getting feedback from there. Maybe you're taking interview feedback notes and adding them in. All you're doing is creating this kind of data set that you can then go back to and query whenever you want. And it's going to give you this kind of real-time updated list of all the different features of this hiring project that you can refer back to over time. So that's step 2. I think if you're not already doing this kind of tier 2 approach, hopefully this demo will get you thinking about how you might use it. Okay, tier 3, the final hurdle for now, and who knows what it's going to look like 2 years from now. I did want to touch on agentic workflow. It's been a hot topic for a lot of people for a while, and I think it's really interesting to look at how you might take what we've done in kind of tier 1, built into tier 2, and then taking tier 2 and actually automating that whole process. And so I've given a couple of examples here. I'm not going to do a demo because there are so many different tools that you could use. N8N is one that I've played around with a little bit. There's also Zapier has a really interesting interface, and you could actually use stuff with just simple coding. If you're going to vibe code some Python scripts, you can actually kind of connect them together into an agentic workflow. But really, for now, what I want you to think about is the context of how can you actually take these different processes, fit them together into a workflow so that there's a trigger and it actually activates all of these things. So we just went from a project where we have all of our kind of hiring process built in. Well, what happens if you get a new applicant into your ATS? Is there a way that you could actually pre-filter that candidate and then potentially put them in front of a hiring manager or a recruiter or a sourcer, depending on the pipeline that you set up, so that they can actually review the candidate and decide if you're going to move forward with them? When you get interview scorecard back, is there a way that you could actually add that context back into the project and update the system so that you now start to think through how is everyone kind of stacking up against the expectations of the role? How likely are you to go to offer with a candidate anytime soon? And you can start to kind of build all these frameworks in place. A couple of examples I've put in here: a weekly pipeline health digest. So using the newer ATSs have these MCPs, model context protocols, where they're actually allowing you to connect to different large language models and to actually connect to different agents. You could actually have something where every Friday at 8 a.m., your greenhouse ATS is going to trigger and send you the current pipeline, so that when you get to work in the morning, your Gen AI process has already run and it's already giving you a list of action items that you need to close out before the end of the week. It's giving you a kind of a candidate scorecard for everyone that's currently in the pipeline that you can then send to the hiring manager. It's maybe giving you a list of action items that have already been emailed to the hiring manager to kind of ensure that when they get into the office that they can then start to kind of move that process along. And then there's the new rec auto kickoff package. So new rec's created in the ATS. What are all the things that need to happen to get that rec live as quickly as possible? So instead of you as the recruiter having to chase up the comp team to get the comp approved, and the hiring managers to get the job description, and the rec ops team to actually get the rec posted live on the job board, maybe all these things are automatically triggered. And so a workflow actually pops up in their inbox immediately, and then you can kind of quarterback it from your position as the recruiter. So lots of different kind of ways to think about how you might approach this. But really, I want to encourage you to start thinking about these like 3 tiers of thinking. If all you're doing right now is copy and paste prompting, you can really start to think about how you bring things together in different projects. And if you're in a leadership role, you probably want to start thinking about how can you orchestrate these workflows together to create something that looks like this so that you actually have a more automated process and actually get some benefits. So if you're really excited about this, please make sure you sign up to the Miata Talent Academy. We have some courses already live. These are going to be completely reframed into tracks that are going to help everyone to develop and upskill in these areas. So excited about this next stage, and please drop a comment and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Thanks. Bye-bye.